No fuel over the Atlantic Ocean. This plane was no longer flying. Both engines were silent. Fuel, zero. Below them was nothing but the Atlantic Ocean. No ships, no lights, no second chances, and the nearest land was more than 300 kilometers away. This was not terrorism. This was not mechanical sabotage. This was a mistake. In aviation history, many aircraft have crashed, but very few have survived something like this. A modern wide-body jet, at cruising altitude, losing both engines over open ocean. No thrust, no power, only air, and time running out. August 2001. A routine transatlantic flight from Toronto to Lisbon. Passengers are calm, cabin lights are dimmed. The flight feels ordinary. Weather conditions are stable. The aircraft appears healthy. Everything looks normal. But the danger had already begun, long before anyone noticed. The problem did not start in the air. It started on the ground. A fuel calculation, a unit conversion, kilograms confused with pounds. A small mistake on paper, but in aviation, small mistakes don't stay small. The aircraft took off carrying less fuel than the crew believed. Hours into the flight, subtle signs begin to appear. Fuel readings do not match predictions. Consumption numbers don't line up. There are no alarms yet, no flashing warnings, just numbers that quietly refuse to make sense. The crew begins cross-checking systems. At this point, the aircraft is still safe, but the clock is already ticking. At the controls is the captain, Captain Robert Pichet, 48 years old, more than 16,000 flight hours, nearly 5,000 hours on the Airbus A330. A former military pilot, an experienced glider pilot, known for remaining calm under pressure. Beside him sits the first officer, Dirk de Jager, 28 years old, nearly 5,000 total flight hours, less than 500 on the A330. Young, highly trained, methodical. Together, they monitor the situation. Then it happens. A fuel pressure warning. One engine begins to lose power. This is not supposed to happen. Not here, not now, not at this altitude. Moments later, the first engine shuts down. Silence. The aircraft is now flying on a single engine over the Atlantic Ocean. Procedures begin. Calculations are made. The crew searches for answers, but the truth is already unavoidable. Minutes later, the second engine flames out. Both engines are gone. No fuel remains. The Airbus A330 has become a glider. At 39,000 feet, over open ocean, there is no checklist for this situation. No simulator truly prepares you for total engine failure over the Atlantic. But Captain Pichet understands one critical fact. This aircraft can glide. Every meter of altitude is now distance. Every decision is survival. They calculate, they commit, they turn toward the Azores. The aircraft descends silently. No engine noise, only wind rushing past the fuselage. Inside the cabin, flight attendants prepare passengers without causing panic. Inside the cockpit, every second matters. Too steep and they fall short. Too shallow and the aircraft stalls. This is no longer flying. This is precision. After nearly 19 minutes of silent gliding, land finally appears. Leje's Air Base. One chance, one approach. There is no power to go around. No second attempt. The aircraft descends fast. Much faster than a normal landing. Too fast. But stopping is no longer optional. The landing is violent. Tires burst. Brakes overheat. The aircraft skids down the runway and finally comes to a stop. Against all odds, every single person survives. All 306 people walk away. This flight was not saved by luck. It was saved by training, by experience, by calm decision-making when panic would have been easier. The engines failed, the fuel was gone, but the pilots did not, and that made all the difference. At this altitude, nothing about the situation feels real. The aircraft is silent, no vibration, no familiar engine hum. Commercial pilots are trained to manage emergencies, but very few are ever trained for absolute silence. The cockpit instruments continue working, but the margins are razor thin. Every calculation now depends on one question: how far can they glide? Captain Pichet begins running mental math. For every 1,000 feet of altitude, the aircraft can travel several kilometers forward. But wind matters. Weight matters. Configuration matters. A single wrong assumption could mean coming up short. There is no backup plan. Inside the cabin, passengers sense something is wrong. The engines are quiet. Too quiet. Flight attendants move calmly, but deliberately. They are trained not just to serve, but to protect calm when panic could spread. Passengers are told the aircraft has a technical issue. No mention of fuel, no mention of engines. Fear spreads faster than facts. Back in the cockpit, the crew faces another problem. Without engines, hydraulic and electrical systems begin degrading. Backup systems engage automatically. Some displays dim, others disappear entirely. The aircraft is slowly becoming more basic, more mechanical, more vulnerable. Yet this simplicity helps. Less automation means more direct control. Captain Pichet adjusts the glide profile. Every movement is smooth, every correction minimal. Aggression would waste altitude. Patience is survival. The Azores are still far. Time feels stretched. Minutes pass slower than usual. The crew monitors airspeed constantly. Too slow, and the aircraft stalls. Too fast, and altitude disappears. There is no engine to recover either mistake. As the aircraft descends, weather begins to matter. Cloud layers obscure the horizon. Visual references vanish. This is where many pilots would struggle, but Pichet's glider experience becomes critical. He is used to flying without engines, used to reading air instead of instruments. He treats the Airbus not as a jet, but as a very heavy sail plane. Gradually, the outline of land begins to appear. At first, it feels unreal, then unmistakable. The Azores. Relief does not come immediately, because now comes the hardest part. They are high, they are fast, and they have no engines to adjust the approach. A normal jet landing allows multiple corrections. This one allows none. The descent rate increases. The runway grows rapidly in the windshield. Too rapidly. The aircraft crosses the runway threshold far faster than normal. There is no way to slow down. Touchdown is inevitable. The main gear slams onto the runway. The impact is violent. Tires explode under stress. Brakes overheat instantly. For a moment, it seems the aircraft will not stop. But friction wins. The jet finally comes to rest. Silence returns, this time permanent. Inside the cabin, there is disbelief, then relief, then applause. 306 people are alive. Investigators later conclude something important. This was not a miracle. It was the result of layered training, experience, and discipline. The mistake happened on the ground, but survival happened in the air. When fuel was gone, skill became the only engine left. Silence inside a commercial cockpit is unnatural. Pilots are trained to expect noise, vibration, constant feedback from engines pushing thousands of kilograms through the air. Now there is none. The Airbus continues forward, but only because of momentum. Gravity is in control. Every system on board begins switching to backup modes. Electricity is reduced. Hydraulics are limited. Some flight control protections quietly disappear. The aircraft is no longer helping the pilots. It is obeying them. This changes everything. Captain Pichet understands that automation, usually an advantage, is now a liability. He simplifies the cockpit. Less discussion, clear roles, short sentences. There is no room for debate. The first officer focuses on navigation and calculations. Distance, altitude, wind. Each number is checked twice, once by instrument, once by instinct, because instruments can fail. Experience does not. The glide ratio becomes the most important number in the world. At this weight and configuration, the aircraft can travel roughly 15 kilometers for every 1,000 meters of altitude. But that is only on paper. Reality is never perfect. Headwinds reduce range. Turns waste energy. Even small corrections cost distance. Every unnecessary movement is avoided. Inside the cabin, time feels distorted. Passengers notice the absence of engine noise. Some look out the windows. Others close their eyes. Flight attendants move slowly, deliberately. They do not rush. They do not explain too much. Panic grows when information grows. Calm grows when behavior remains calm. No one is told the truth. Not yet. Because fear at this altitude is more dangerous than ignorance. Back in the cockpit, another challenge appears. Without engine bleed air, cabin pressurization begins to degrade. Oxygen masks deploy automatically. For passengers, this is the first visible sign that something is very wrong. But even now, there is no screaming, just confusion. The aircraft continues descending. The horizon begins to sharpen. Stars fade as clouds move past the windshield. Visibility changes constantly. The crew must decide when to descend faster and when to preserve altitude. Too early, and they lose reach. Too late, and they risk overshooting the only runway available. There is only one suitable airport within range. Lagys Air Base, a military runway, long, wide, but unforgiving. There will be no air traffic control guidance like a normal landing. Radar coverage is limited. Radio communication is brief. The crew declares an emergency, but there is little anyone on the ground can do. This is now a closed system. What happens next depends entirely on the two people in the cockpit. Captain Pichet adjusts the aircraft's pitch carefully. He does not chase speed. He does not chase altitude. He chases balance. The Airbus responds slowly, heavily. It is not designed to glide, but it does. Minute by minute, altitude disappears. Every few seconds, the captain recalculates, not out loud, in his head. This is where his past matters. Before flying jets, Pichet flew aircraft that had no engines at all. Gliders. In those aircraft, mistakes are final. You do not add power to fix errors. You live with them. That mindset now becomes the difference between success and impact. The Azores grow larger in the windshield. For the first time, the outcome feels uncertain, but possible. Then a new problem emerges. They are too high, too fast. Normally, engines would solve this. Throttle back, adjust descent, but engines are gone. The only tools left are drag and geometry. The landing gear is deployed early, not for landing, for drag. The aircraft shudders slightly as airflow changes. Altitude bleeds away faster. Still, the speed remains high. The runway fills the cockpit windows rapidly. There is no room for a missed approach, no second attempt. This landing will happen, whether it is controlled or not. The aircraft crosses the runway threshold far above normal landing speed. The touchdown is hard, violent. The tires cannot absorb the energy. They explode. Braking systems overheat instantly. For several seconds, it appears the aircraft will overrun the runway. Then friction wins. The aircraft slows. Finally, it stops. Inside the cabin, there is a moment of silence. No one moves. Then applause breaks out. Not celebration, relief, shock, survival. Emergency crews surround the aircraft. Passengers evacuate. All 306 people leave the plane alive. Later investigations will focus on numbers, fuel quantities, conversion errors, procedural gaps. But numbers alone do not explain survival. This flight was saved in the air, not on paper. It was saved by discipline under pressure, by experience without ego, by decisions made calmly when seconds mattered. The engines failed. The fuel was gone. But control was never lost. And that is why this flig. If this story kept you watching until the end, thank you for being here. If you enjoy aviation documentaries like this, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps more than you think. Leave a like if this video taught you something new, and let me know in the comments which aviation incident you'd like to see next. Some stories deserve to be remembered.